She dreamed of runways. He lived for risk and reward. Together they burned bright, but when it ended in blood. Mayka Kukucova was born in 1990 in a small Slovakian town. From an early age, she was striking, not just in beauty, but in ambition. While other girls played pretend, Mayka had a vision. She would become a model, nothing less. By her teenage years, she was already posing for photographers and accepting local offers. However, small-town Slovakia couldn't provide the international stardom she craved, catwalks and magazine covers. So, at 18, she packed her life into a suitcase and left home for the United Kingdom. She landed in Bristol, full of hope, but the reality of modeling abroad was harsher than she expected. Gigs were rare, money was tight, and dreams don't pay rent. To survive, Mayka cleaned hotel rooms, waited tables, and folded shirts in stores. The glamour she had envisioned never arrived. Her career stalled, and her confidence wavered. But one thing was certain: she would not return to Slovakia defeated. In 2010, Mayka stumbled across an ad that would change everything. A jewelry shop in Bristol was hiring a sales assistant. She applied, dressed her best, and walked in for the interview. That's when she met Andrew Bush, a 44-year-old self-made millionaire, very much available. He had built his wealth from the ground up with no inheritance or shortcuts, just sheer hustle. A man of routines, he spent early mornings at the gym and long days managing his expanding jewelry empire. He lived large, with sports cars, a mansion, and a reputation. After divorcing the mother of his daughter, Ellie, Andrew made headlines for dating women decades younger than him. Mayka caught his eye instantly. She got the job, and soon after, she got the man. Despite their age gap, sparks flew. He admired her beauty and hunger for life, while she was drawn to his power, polished confidence, and a world of fast cars and first-class flights. With Andrew, Mayka's world transformed. Designer clothes, luxury handbags, globe-trotting holidays. They spent long weekends in Spain, especially at his villa. He spoiled her, and she basked in it. For Mayka, this wasn't just a relationship, it was a fairy tale. But for Andrew, the excitement began to fade. Paradise had cracks. He was a businessman, constantly juggling meetings and obligations, while Mayka wanted every second of his time. If he was gone too long, questions arose, followed by accusations and screaming matches. She watched him like a hawk, any waitress smiling too long, any female customer in the shop. Each instance felt like betrayal. Jealousy took root, suffocating their relationship. Andrew tried to overlook it. She was stunning, and he enjoyed the envy she sparked. But soon, the arguments turned physical. Mayka began throwing things, yelling, and demanding. The man who had given her the world started pulling away. What had begun as passion began to feel like a prison. He thought it was love. She thought it was forever. But when the gifts stopped, so did the illusion. What followed wasn't heartbreak. It was obsession. Andrew Bush was starting to feel like a stranger in his own life. Mayka, who had once seemed like a breath of fresh air, had changed. The relationship became tense and toxic. She wanted access to everything: his schedule, his location, even his phone. He didn't like that, and he really didn't like that she was spending his money like water. Handbags, clothes, jewelry. Mayka didn't look at price tags. She didn't ask. She expected, and Andrew was getting tired of always saying yes. The arguments escalated. Every no became a full-blown scene. She threw tantrums when he set boundaries. This wasn't the woman he had first met. Worse, he caught her lying repeatedly. One day, she even claimed to have been in a car accident just to make him worry and get his attention. By November 2013, Andrew had seen enough. He made a decision. The relationship was over. It was already falling apart. But then came the final straw. Andrew had a business trip planned to the Middle East, and he was going alone. Mayka didn't like that at all. She begged to come along, but he refused. Just days before his departure, he walked into his house to find her handcuffed. She claimed there had been a break-in, that burglars had tied her up and stolen several items, including his passport. But the story crumbled fast. No forced entry, no witnesses, no fingerprints. The police couldn't find a shred of evidence. No one believed her, not even Andrew. Instead of keeping him home, it pushed him away. He ended things for good, moved out, and this time, he didn't look back. Mayka was devastated. She couldn't accept it. She wouldn't. She tried everything to win him back, flooding his phone with pictures of them together, adding quotes about love and regret, posting their memories on social media, and tagging him, hoping mutual friends would take her side. But no one did, not even Andrew. To those around him, her behavior looked more desperate than romantic. Eventually, Mayka packed her bags and left the UK, returning to Slovakia and her old life. She met someone new, and for a while, things looked promising. It seemed like she had finally moved on. Andrew didn't stay single for long. Just a month after the breakup, he was already seeing someone new. Maria, a 20-year-old beauty from Russia. Maria wasn't like the others. She didn't need Andrew's money. She came from wealth, bought her own clothes, and paid for her own life. Andrew loved that. With her, he wasn't just a wallet. He was a man again. Happy, spontaneous, and free. Their social media pages were filled with glamorous snapshots, island holidays, champagne parties, and candlelit nights. But someone else was watching. Mayka saw everything. The trips she never took, the smiles that weren't meant for her, the life she thought was hers, now replaced. Then came April 5th, 2014. Andrew and Maria flew into Malaga at 9:30 p.m., planning a relaxing weekend at Andrew's villa. One of his cars, a Hummer, had been left at the airport for them. They picked it up, stopped for a quick drink at a local bar, and then made their way home. By the time they pulled up to the villa, it was nearly midnight. The front door opened and something felt wrong. Women's clothes were scattered near the entrance. Inside one of the rooms, they found a suitcase, high heels, and pajamas. It didn't belong to either of them. Someone had been in the house. Someone was still in the house. Maria turned and saw her, a woman in pajamas standing silently at the top of the stairs. She had never met her in person, but she knew that face from framed photos in Andrew's home. It was Mayka. She wasn't just an ex, she was dangerous. So dangerous that Andrew had taken legal action, filing for a restraining order to keep her away. And now, there she was, in his home, in the middle of the night. Maria bolted from the house, waiting outside, shaking and confused. Andrew, however, stayed behind. He was furious. This had gone too far. He was ready to confront her. She couldn't just walk into his home, break the law, and ignore court orders. Maria waited, hoping the confrontation would end quickly. But after several minutes, Andrew came outside, his expression unreadable. "Call the police," he told her, then turned and walked back inside. Maria reached for her phone. It was dead. She remembered the outdoor power sockets, plugged it in, and waited. Then came 3 sharp bangs. Gunshots? No, that couldn't be. Maybe a suitcase falling down the stairs? She didn't want to believe what she had heard. Moments later, Mayka walked out of the house, composed and calm. She approached Maria. "Andrew's in the bathroom," she said. "He told me I could take the car to the airport." She showed her the keys. Dazed and confused, Maria stepped out of the car. Mayka got in and drove away into the night in Andrew's Hummer. Maria tried to go back inside, but the door was locked. She called out for Andrew, but there was no response. Finally, her phone had enough charge to make one call. She called Andrew's sister, Rachel. The two women were close, and when Rachel heard what had happened, she didn't hesitate. "Call the police," she said, "right now." But the police couldn't find the villa. Maria had to walk to the main road, waving them down. Finally, they arrived, and what they found inside the house changed everything. They searched every room until they found Andrew, lying on the floor, covered in blood, 2 gunshot wounds to the head and 1 to the shoulder. There was no pulse, no hope. He was already dead. And there, in his hand, was a pistol. But it was a lie. It was impossible that Andrew had shot himself. The gun had been placed there after the murder, and there was only one person who could have done it. Mayka had vanished. A few miles from the house, Andrew's Hummer was found abandoned, with no sign of her. The manhunt went international, across Spain, then across Europe. Where was Mayka Kukucova? 4 days later, she walked into a police station in Slovakia, ready to turn herself in. Mayka knew the hunt was closing in. She had asked her new boyfriend to fly to Spain. He picked her up and drove her back to her hometown. Now she was handing herself over. Her excuse? She claimed she was pregnant with Andrew's child, that she had traveled to Spain just to tell him. She said she arrived 2 days before Andrew and Maria, and that neighbors could confirm she was in the garden that day. She claimed that Andrew was furious when she told him she was pregnant, that he grabbed a gun and fired at her, and that in the chaos, the weapon discharged by accident 3 times. But investigators knew early on that her story didn't hold. For one thing, she wasn't pregnant, and Andrew hadn't fired the gun. There were no traces of gunpowder on his hands. The angle and distance of the gunshots made it physically impossible for him to have pulled the trigger. Forensic teams concluded the gun was fired from approximately 5 feet away, indicating premeditated murder. The evidence was clear. 6 weeks after Andrew's death, Mayka Kukucova was extradited to Spain. She was placed in custody and denied bail. Her trial began in May 2016. In court, Mayka painted herself as a victim, claiming Andrew had abused her, that she feared him, and that he had a violent temper. But if that were true, why go to his villa alone? Why wait for him in secret? Why bring a weapon? Her story kept changing. The pregnancy claim was dropped, likely because the timeline proved it false. Had she really been expecting a child in April 2014? That child would have been 2 years old by the time of the trial. She claimed Andrew had invited her to retrieve her belongings, but again, if he was as dangerous as she claimed, why return at all? She even tried to explain the scratches on her body, saying Andrew had attacked her during an argument, but DNA evidence proved he hadn't even touched her. Her injuries remained unexplained. The gun was never conclusively linked to either of them, but one thing was certain: Mayka used it. The timeline proved everything. When Andrew stepped outside and told Maria to call the police, Mayka made a choice. Instead of leaving, she found the weapon, and when he came back inside, she used it. On May 27, 2016, Mayka was found guilty of murder and unlawful entry. She was sentenced to 15 years and 6 months in prison. 15 years for killing Andrew Bush, 6 months for unlawfully entering his home. She was also ordered to pay 200,000 euros to Andrew's family and cover all court costs. Her legal team appealed, arguing that she had turned herself in and that she still had a key, so technically there was no break-in. In 2017, her sentence was reduced to 13 years and 9 months. For Andrew's family, justice still felt out of reach. Until 2022, they couldn't even bring his body home. His remains were kept in Spain, with forensic evidence held in limbo. Mayka's ongoing appeals meant a retrial was always possible, and so his family waited year after year. Then one day in 2022, Rachel, Andrew's sister, was scrolling online and saw it, photos of Mayka out in Spain, free. No announcement, no notice from authorities, just freedom. Andrew's family had expected her to serve every day of her sentence. Instead, she had served roughly 8 years. To them, that was far too short. After Andrew's murder, Maria shared her grief with the world. His ex-wife flew to Spain with their daughter Ellie to say goodbye. Andrew's family still searches for peace in a world where justice sometimes feels unfinished. Thanks for tuning in. Don't miss out. Subscribe now for more thrilling investigations.